We are now a day removed from the second NASCAR Cup Series race at the Nashville Superspeedway, and a lot of stuff can be talked about that was good and bad from the weekend. A lot of great racing, a lot of good moments, a lot of bad postponements. It was crazy. It was hectic. But what we can also talk about is the future of the track. You see, the Nashville market is one that NASCAR is really keen on tapping into and growing it, and I completely understand why they would do this. It is a fast-growing market. It's a market with plenty of sports culture and racing culture, and so it makes complete and perfect sense to do this. But I think what a lot of people are questioning now after 2 years at the Superspeedway is, what is the track's future? Because I think after the current contract it has with NASCAR, it's going to be a bit of a mystery. I want to look at 5 different things that kind of add and play into this. And the first one is the racing. The racing itself, in my opinion, was a lot better in 2021. A lot of people last year thought the racing was a snoozer, and it could be attributed to the Gen 6 car. Even with the 750 package, the Gen 6 car was not one that was great. But this year, the racing was a lot better. At one point, you saw 3 wide battling for second, you saw side-by-side battling for the lead throughout the day, and you saw a lot of comers and goers because tire wear and the way that the cars handled with tire wear mattered a lot more this year. And during the night and the day, there was a great widening groove for these drivers to use, high, low, and even in the middle. I mean, like I said, they were able to do 3 wide at night, where in the previous generations of cars, it would probably be a single file bottom line freight train. So I gotta say, the racing, for what people will say about it, is not the issue here. The next gen car delivered at this track. Was it as good as some of the other mile-and-a-half tracks or tracks that are like this track? I wouldn't say so, but I would say that it is definitely better than what we've gotten at intermediate tracks for a long, long time. You see, where this track has its issues is kind of with marketing and policy. And I think that the in-person experience, is what could end up hurting or even killing this as a Cup Series date. The number one thing is the marketing. This has been marketed as being in the Nashville market. It is NASCAR going to Nashville. They use the city itself. They had Rutledge on NBC in the city, yet the racetrack is about an hour south. I've recently moved to be just north of Nashville, and I like that I have a track nearby me, but it still was an hour-long drive to and from the racetrack each day, and if it's going to be that far for me, can you imagine how it is for people who are thinking they're going to the Nashville market? You're basically going out into sort of the middle of nowhere in comparison. So I think it's a little bit of false marketing right there. It's very separate from the market, and I'll be real, even around here, because I did hang out around here a lot before the race, there wasn't as much advertisement, whether on billboards or on TV or whatnot, for this race as there was the year before. There was maybe a commercial to buy tickets for this race on the Sonoma race, but that was about it. So it definitely took a step backwards, and this is especially egregious seeing how last year it was still a question until about 3 to 4 weeks before what the COVID policy would be. So that's not the greatest. But what I think a lot of people have been talking about is the at-track policy. The big one, no coolers. And yes, I know other sporting venues have this. Yes, I know that the NFL doesn't let coolers come into their stadiums, but this isn't the NFL. NASCAR is a different culture. It is relatively normal to bring your own coolers, food, drinks, whatever into the track, and it's actually a big selling point for a lot of fans. So not allowing them to do this, with it nearing or even topping 100 degrees Fahrenheit during some of these races, in my opinion, is a really bad move and needs to be changed. It's a number one change, I think, for the fan experience at the track. Parking and the traffic situation has also been a huge issue, both this year and last. Last year, we had a little mini Kentucky Speedway incident where it was really hard for fans to get in, where they had to pay, and then some didn't have to pay. It was just a mess, and they've openly admitted such. There were improvements this year. Traffic flow was a lot better, but a lot of the police around the track weren't knowing where to direct different people, and I know that I, in particular, had a problem where they didn't know how to direct me to the lot that I had been going to the entire weekend. Also, I know other people who had left the track during the rain delay to go get dry clothes, stop at a gas station, do whatever, and then nearly get turned away at the gate because they left the facility at a rain delay that went for a few hours. It's not good optics, and I wouldn't blame people for not going after that kind of stuff. And the attendance, while good, no matter what people are saying out there about the way the attendance looked, the attendance was good, but it was still down. They sold out easily last year, 40,000 seats, as they should, because that is something the NASCAR Cup Series should be able to do. This year, yeah, the middle grandstands were almost completely full. But those side grandstands, the side 15,000 seats, maybe 60% full. The ones towards the corners were actually kind of sparse. And that's not a good omen long term when you can't even sell out one of the lowest capacity tracks out there. So that's something to look at. Big one too, to look at the future of this, is the voices against it. There's been a lot of drivers who are not happy going this far out and want to be closer to Nashville at the fairgrounds. And the biggest among these is Chase Elliott. More than likely, you know Chase Elliott is the most popular driver in NASCAR, and he is going to use that to his advantage here, as he probably should.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't think the race was terrible tonight. You know, at least we could get up off the bottom and move around, which I thought was, you know, encouraging. And I was even more surprised that we still moved up after the sun went down. You know, I thought at that point it was going to be really one lane, and it really wasn't. You know, you could still be in at least a couple different lanes, and it was way more racy than I thought it was, or I thought it would be. That still doesn't mean I prefer this over the fairgrounds and what that could be. You know, I don't want people to, you know, get a sour taste about that. It's just, you know, that racetrack and the history of that racetrack and its location is just something that we're never going to replicate again. You know, I mean, for the most part, all these facilities that we have are, you know, 45 minutes to an hour outside whatever said market is we're trying to reach. You know, if it's Michigan and or you know, here, or Atlanta's 30, 45 minutes south of the city, you know, like all these places we go, Homestead's an hour outside Miami, you know, so all these places that we go, you're drawing from an area that is 45 minutes to an hour away. With the fairgrounds, you'd be drawing from an area that's, 15 blocks away or so. Correct me if I'm wrong, you know, on that, but it's a hell of a lot closer than it is here. And that's just not something that in today's society, you're never going to build a racetrack in a city like that again. So that's why I think as an industry, we need to take advantage of that. We don't need to let that place die. You know, I mean, I know they built that big soccer stadium right next door, but use that as positivity, because the infrastructure is now there to house all the people. You know, now they have ideas and ways to get people in and out. So it's too good of a place, too good of an opportunity for us to not be utilizing that. In my opinion, I think it'd be the best location and best event of the year if they could pull that off. And look, they're already racing there. You know, like, folks seem to be doing just fine with the races that are going on, and you'd be talking about one big event a year there for us to come and be a part of it. So I think the positives outweigh the negatives, and I think there's a way to be respectful in doing so of the folks that live in the area and be able to you know, do it in a positive light.
And speaking of the Nashville Fairgrounds, that's the big crux of this. If SMI moves forward and gets a deal done, there may not be room for two tracks in the Nashville market. We saw, yes, there was a good sellout last year, but that was the excitement of coming there for Cup for the first time in decades. Now that excitement is worn off, as we've seen, this track is more or less another kind of cookie-cutter track, even though it does race good. And if there's a better option like the fairgrounds out there, which the fairgrounds more than likely would turn into the better racing option, then I see fans choosing that one over this. If 40,000 can't sell out for this one race, how are they going to do that long term for two races? The answer, they're not. It's a city market versus a rural market. And the city market, with a city that is open to NASCAR, is going to do much better than a rural market will. I'm not saying the Superspeedway won't be in the lower series, like the Trucks or the Xfinity series if needed. But I'm also not saying that I think this is going to have a future to it. But now I want to pass this one on to you, because as for me, I had a ton of fun in the infield this weekend, and I appreciate everything Nashville Superspeedway did to help out with that. But I want to hear what you all think. People who had a different experience either on TV or in person than I did. Do you think the Nashville Superspeedway has a long-term future in Cup, or is this a stopgap track for the Nashville Fairgrounds? Let me know down in the comments below. While you're at it, leave a like on this video, share this video, and subscribe to my channel for more great NASCAR content. Thank you to all my channel members for your continued support. And until next time, have a good one.